Next Book, where teachers come to discover their next great classroom read. Brought to you by Plains Literacy Council, a division of the Alabama Literacy Association.
Welcome to our December episode of Next Book. This month we are talking about ebooks, audiobooks, things that are not paper books.
Joining us today is Katie Rayner. Katie is currently the media specialist at Auburn Junior High School. Before this, she taught 8th grade English for 14 years. No, wait. You just taught English. How many years did you teach 8th grade?
I taught 9th and 10th grade for 2 years, and then 8th grade for 12 years.
All right, I'm going to update that bio. She did all of that for 14 years and then made the switch to the library in 2018. Katie, thanks for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
Awesome. All right, well, we're going to jump straight into the topic today. We're talking about ebooks, audiobooks, paper books, all the books. How do you decide when you're reaching for a specific mode of reading? How do you decide how you're going to read it?
A lot of it has to do with convenience. And so I love ebooks and audiobooks because they always arrive really quickly. So it's a great way to get your hands on a new book. It's that instant gratification, but also if I finish a book over a weekend or sometime where it's just not a great time to run to the library and get a book. Or run to the bookstore. So that has a lot to do with it. But also there's certain books that I think lend themselves to certain modes of reading. I did not listen to a lot of audiobooks before we went home for the pandemic. But when we did, I found myself too restless to sit and read a book for a long time. And so I started doing a lot of audiobook listening while I would do yard work or I would go for walks and stuff like that. And I found that certain types of books make for really great audiobooks. I love books with just one or two narrators that follow a pretty direct timeline that don't jump around in time too often. YA books are fantastic audiobooks because they typically kind of follow that format a little more. They're a little easier, and they also tend to be a little bit shorter. Mm-hmm. So they usually are in that 7 to 10 hour length, which I like a lot too. So a lot of times I'll pick an ebook or an audiobook for if I want to read something that's like a mystery or kind of lighthearted, like a YA romance or something like that. And then I like a paper book for my more challenging books that are more complex or my adult fiction that I read. So that's kind of where I get started there.
Well, and Katie, I feel like you've kind of become a champion of ebooks. I don't know if you see yourself that way, but just the introduction of Sora, and I feel like you've really just increased readership at Auburn Junior High, but I'm at East Sanford School, so a different school also in Auburn Cities, and we learned about Sora from you, and we've started increasing our library and things like that. So can you just talk about why you wanted to bring ebooks to students?
Sure. So my predecessor in the library did buy ebooks and audiobooks from Overdrive, and she did a fantastic job of selecting books. But our students' one-to-one program was with laptops then, so it was through a browser. I was so lucky to come into the library the same year that our students got iPads, and Overdrive introduced Sora, which is their app for students for ebooks and audiobooks, and it is just a really beautifully designed app. And as a person who reads it myself, I really appreciate that because I've used several different apps, and you appreciate an app that's easy to navigate. It's easy if you lose your place, you can go back and find it. It's really easy to bookmark or take notes if you need to do that. And so as we started that year, I saw some of the data coming in for ebooks and audiobooks, and the readership jumped 500% the first year that we had iPads.
Incredible.
So, which was amazing, and a huge part of that is just the accessibility issue because they were easy to get to for students. And so I guess that was just a happy circumstance, in terms of timing, that I could see the potential there and the power there for students. And so I've continued to champion them because I do think for a lot of our students, they don't have a lot of autonomy when it comes to getting books for themselves. They're limited by their families when it comes to access to the public library or to bookstores. And on our campus is so big that sometimes they're limited in terms of like just being able to get out of class for long enough to get books. And so we do see our ninth graders who are further from the library tend to be bigger ebook readers. So I do think that it's important to have a lot of access.
I get it. It's a long walk.
It is a long walk to the library.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's pretty cool too because like on breaks and stuff, I have students that are ready to go check out. We have a 2-book limit at our library. I don't know if it's the same here. But they check out those 2 books and they're like, Miss Hope, I'll be done with this before Christmas. What am I going to read? And Sora has become a great go-to. Like it's accessible at home over breaks. And it just seems pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, and not just that, but like from a media specialist point of view, could you speak to how easy it is to add to the collection?
I really love that because students will send me requests a lot. And if we buy them in traditional form, we will get them, but sometimes it'll be 6 or 8 weeks before they're in the library. And when it's on Sora, I can go in, I can buy books really on demand. And so it's really fun for a student to ask for a book and to be like, hey, it'll be there in like a couple of hours. So I love that. And it really gives me a lot of data as well in terms of just being able to see how many times a book has been checked out. And so it makes for a really flexible collection. I get what... I use the same selection tools that I use for regular books to get books in the library, but then I can see which books are kind of trending and which ones are not getting checked out, and I can either try to highlight those and push them a little bit, but I can also build the collection based on holds and things like that. And I can do some of that with the regular collection, but it's really easy,
just super easy
when it comes to Overdrive.
Yeah. So and you mentioned students wanting books, but I was part of an email chain the other day, so that's the only reason why I'm going to bring it up. But we had teachers request books in a specific translation. And can you walk us through how easy it was to take care of that problem? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes. So and that's another thing. Like we have our population of students who read in other languages can vary, so we don't always have books in a student's language in the library, but a teacher reached out asking if we had any copies, and we didn't, and I have tried to order them, and they've been back ordered or out of stock
so it was,
in the past.
It was copies of Romeo and Juliet in Korean, correct?
Yeah, I think that's what it was, yeah. So I was like, well, maybe they have it on Overdrive. And sure enough, they did. And so I was like, okay, there's 5 copies on Overdrive. They're there today. And I also was able to attach directions on how to have students annotate.
That's awesome.
And they can print their annotations as a PDF when they finish the book and then upload it for the teacher if that's something that's helpful. So that was a cool tool, and
that's pretty incredible.
Resource.
The accessibility aspect of it is just mind-blowing from a teacher's perspective, student's perspective. And I've used it a little bit. I haven't actually used it as a classroom teacher, but is there also a dyslexic mode?
So there's a lot of accessibility features. You can change the color and contrast. So for students that helps, you can do that. You can change the print. We have a student here who's blind, and they have accessibility print that's like, I don't know, like 72 font. So that student can still check books out because he can read at that awesome. Level. And then there's a lot of font options, so you can use the dyslexic font if that helps. So there's a lot of great accessibility tools.
That's awesome.
That's great. It sounds like we're trying to sell Sora. Sora did not pay for this episode. We just love it. We've used it so much in our school, and Katie, you've done such a good job of pushing it out there to teachers and students. Really great.
That's one of our big ideas, though, is getting people to read more. So if you have Sora at your school, You
for
should
sure.
check it out too.
Yeah, and if you are interested right now, Katie, can you talk a little bit about Sora, the big read, the big library read?
Yes, Sora does twice a year what they call the Big Library Read. They usually choose a fiction title and then a nonfiction title, a memoir or something like that. And they make it available in audiobook and ebook form for unlimited users. So it's going, I think it goes November 1st through 15th. So people still have time to join if they want to. This year's title is Five Perfect Strangers, which is a thriller about a girl that's on her way home from school for, I think it's Christmas break, and there's a blizzard, and so she gets a ride with some strangers, and things do not go very well.
I can see that being wildly popular right now.
It's pretty cool.
It's really well paced. It's not a super long book. It's got great characters, some good red herrings thrown in there, so you really are not sure.
It's probably a really good one to push students to with their being interested. I know students here read, and then there are none. I have a lot reading. One of Us is Lying.
It kind of has that kind of vibe, yes.
For sure. So Katie, you finished it. I am 67% done. I know that because I just looked at my Sora app. And I love the fact that I can go back and forth. Well, you can't really go back. I have it in both the audiobook and the ebook form so that I'm kind of testing it out to see both features. And I'm really enjoying going back and forth and listening to it, reading it. But it's just so easy. The last thing I'll say about Sora that I really like, and this makes me... I don't know. I just feel like some people really get into this. It gives you badges.
Yes, it totally does. It gives you prizes. And I'll tell you what else. Sora sent me hundreds of buttons with the badges on them so I can pass out buttons as reading prizes to students. And I know that stuff is not why we read, but Sora swag is really great.
It doesn't matter how old you are to get something.
I think Kristen's going to be stopping by soon.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, but it'll send me earlier I got it. I have it on my phone, so it's all synced up. I was in the middle. I opened it back up and it gave me another badge. It was like 2 hours. You've been on here for 2 hours today, and I was like, oh yay! And I got really excited.
Well, you'll get one for returning it early too if you get done.
I can't wait.
And since you brought it up, I'll mention as well, one of my favorite things is you can use any device to read Sora. So it does not have to be your school issued device. Students can put it on their phone and I always tell students, I like audiobooks on my phone. That's what my iPods are synced to, what my car plays. And then I like my ebooks on the iPad. It's a little bit of a bigger screen. So, you can do... You do you, whatever suits you.
Well, and I'll tell you guys, and this kind of comes back to bringing it back to just the general ebook questions. One of the things I like about them is that students can't see how long they are. Do you have those hesitant readers that are afraid, like if something's long?
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things about the ebooks. And I don't know if that's something you can talk about more with your experience, but just if we're encouraging kids to consider things more, have you found that helpful? Have you seen kids push beyond their reach?
That is a great point. It's hard to say specifically, but I do think that the app, the browsing of books, it has such an appealing interface. It shows you a picture of the book. It gives you the little summary. You can read a little sample or listen to a sample of the book. And then, when you go on down a little bit, it'll say if there's an audiobook version of the same book, or if it's in a series, it'll have all the other books linked in the series. So if I'm looking for a book to read, sometimes I'll get on there and look at books, and then I'll go pull the book off the shelf because that's what I'm looking for.
Nice.
But it's just such a really appealing, and I tell the kids it's a little bit like Netflix for books.
Yeah.
Ooh,
it has that
that's
really
a
good
way to
interface.
sell it right there.
Yeah.
Netflix for books.
Well, and it's such a neat option too to have where if kids, if we're doing book clubs or if you're doing an independent reading project, if they can look and see, okay, there's an audiobook too. There's some students that gives them the confidence they need. Reading a whole book's overwhelming, but if I've got a 6-hour audiobook, okay, I can do this,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that we're all in agreement. Audiobooks, that's reading. You're reading the book. We've acknowledged that, right? Because I know that there might still be some teachers out there that don't agree. But
Camille Rip says she's reading with her ears.
Oh, there we go. All right. I love it. Because that, I mean, I totally agree.
Yeah.
What? Do you not agree, Michelle?
No, I totally agree. Kristen and I were just at a conference where somebody kept talking about writing with his face. So
I forgot.
Reading with your ears and writing with your face.
Well, and reading with your ears, I'm like on board
Got
with.
it.
Yeah.
But writing
Okay.
with your face, you still got to work on that.
Yeah.
We'll save that for another episode.
Yeah.
All right.
I do think that listening to audiobooks is reading. I think there's no doubt about that. And for a lot of our students, I really think that's just invaluable. I tell them I need them to read with their ears and their eyes more often than not, because that, listening while you're looking at the text, that's how you're going to become a better reader. But reading stories, listening to stories, like that's a huge step for students. And I don't want to discourage that either. But I definitely think you got to read with your ears and your eyes. I've probably said it on here before, but the best way to become a better reader is to read. And my students will chant that back at me at this point in the school year when they're trying not to do things. But I think it's all valid. And I think we've got to find those ways that work for students, because they're not going to get better
Meet
by
them where they are.
avoiding.
Meet them where they
Yeah.
are. Yeah, for sure. All right. Most important question, Katie. What are you reading next? And kind of, if you've already thought about it,
This is such a good question.
do you have an audiobook that you're going to listen to next? Do you have an ebook? Like, do you have some things lined
I
up?
probably do. Okay, so yes, another thing I love about audiobook and ebook apps is when people mention books that they like, I open the app up and search for it, and I'll like save it for later or put a
Nice.
hold on it.
So you can do that. You can kind of like make a list of to be read.
Yes.
Nice.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm reading a series. The next book is called The Last Graduate. It's like a very dark version of Harry Potter. It's a school for magicians where magic is not a great thing.
Okay.
It's great. It's an adult fantasy. So that's next up on my list. And then I also have Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr, author of All the Light We Cannot See,
Love to hear what you
saved
think
as
of
my
that.
next
Yeah.
audiobook. So my whole
Is
just
that one?
became
Is that
available.
one? Is that one 16 hours long?
That one's probably going to be a little longer.
Yeah.
So those are both adult fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 14 hours and 52 minutes.
I listened to All the Light We Cannot See. And earlier when you were talking about how there are certain books that lend themselves, and we might have already talked about this, that was definitely one where as I finished listening to it, I told myself, I think I would have enjoyed reading it more. So like as you start to listen to more books, I think we do start to recognize which books we as readers
Yeah.
would prefer to listen to versus read with our eyes or read with our ears. Which way do we want to do it? So that's an important thing that I think students need to figure out for themselves. And so, but yeah,
And I think there's so much to be said for narrators too.
yes, yeah, for sure.
Some are not as good as others.
Some are not.
Some
as
are
good as
not,
others.
yeah.
Well, and talking about books that have multiple narrators, I think that those lend themselves well to audiobooks.
They do.
Like,
I like ones that have
yes.
a full cast or something.
Yeah, because I can still I know this is an not older book, but Gone Girl. That was the first book where I was like, oh my gosh, I really love audiobooks, and it was because they did such a good job going back and forth between the two narrators. So that's always been one that stuck out to me as a really good audiobook for sure. And then I don't know, is it an episode if we don't mention Trevor Noah's Born a Crime?
I was going to say the best audiobook is Trevor Noah's Born a Crime, which I hope we all
It's
know.
so good. I've listened to that one. And I love an audiobook that's a memoir read by the writer.
Yes.
I like
it's
Tina
definitely
Fey's
better.
Bossy Pants is fantastic.
I don't think the print version should exist of Tina Fey's Bossy Pants. Like, there's no
Right?
other way to
Oh,
to
man, I
experience
haven't
that
listened
story
to
than
it.
to listen to it.
I read it. I need to listen to it now.
You need to listen.
Jason
All
Reynolds
right,
is
I'll do
also
it.
an excellent audiobook narrator. He does some of his own books sometimes, and he's just incredible, which surprises no one.
No.
Yeah.
And
he
like-
did Stamped. I know he.
He did. I've listened to
yeah,
that one, and it's.
yeah.
I mean, it sounds like he's sitting next to you, trying to help you understand history. It's incredible.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for being with us, Katie.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right.
Welcome to our December episode of Next Book. This month we are talking about ebooks, audiobooks, things that are not paper books. And we are excited to have Allie Music with us. She's currently the assistant principal at Cary Woods Elementary School. Before this, she taught kindergarten, third grade, and first grade. Excuse me. She taught kindergarten, first grade, and third grade for 9 years collectively. And she's also a member of the Plains Literacy Council. We're so happy to have you here today, Allie.
What? I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, I know that we've wanted you to come on the show. I mean, there's been 3 episodes before this, so there hasn't been much time, but we're really glad you could join us, especially for this one, because I feel like this episode covers a lot of this is how educators keep up with reading, honestly, because it's the truth is we do not have a lot of time. So these alternate forms, like we talked about earlier, reading with our ears. Reading with our ears is just as important as reading with our eyes. So
every time we've gotten the chance to catch up with Allie and see what she's reading, she's just been a tremendous champion of the audiobook.
I am. That's the only way I feel like I get to listen, read with my ears, anything, because I don't have time to just sit down and open up a book, which is really sad. Yeah. But I just make it work with audiobooks. I do Audible. Yeah. Push. I should be an influencer now. Give me a free month, please.
Audible does not pay us. Audible did not pay for this spot. But just before we get into like the apps that you use, I think it's important for people to know, Allie, why you're so busy right now, because you have had a lot of changes in the past year. All right.
Yes.
So what do you have going on?
Well, this is my first year being assistant principal at Cary Woods.
Congrats.
And so that is busy, a new kind of busy. Yeah. And then I have a 10-month-old little baby boy at home.
Little baby Bobby,
who is into everything. And if I had a book in my lap, he would probably rip it up.
There you go. Yeah, so for you right now, audiobooks?
Yes.
I mean,
this is the only way I read adult books that are not board books and don't rhyme.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, so you were talking about Audible. So for yourself, so we'll kind of talk for a minute about books that you read for yourself, and then books that you feel like are ways that they work in your classroom. So for yourself, you said Audible is normally what you go with.
Yeah, I'm lazy when it comes to finding things, and I know a lot of people like the Libby app, where you can have a library card and you can get it for free, but I don't like to wait. Because it's the wait is real. The wait is real, and sometimes I just don't have time, and so I am an Amazon person. I'm telling you, I should just influence this whole thing. Amazon Prime, and so I just do Audible, and I get a monthly credit every month, and so...
And honestly, that credit
it pays for my book.
It's a good deal. Like
it is a good deal. That's how I've purchased all of my Game of Thrones and Harry Potter copies. Just through Audible. So
I mean, you pay that monthly fee, and then you just get a free credit, and so I just get a book a month.
There you go. And I love that it counts for books, like, even if they're more than like the monthly.
Oh yeah. I mean, because some books are $22 and it's only, I think it's like $14 a month. Yeah. Which it's worth it in my opinion. I'm in a book club, and so we have shout out to the Mother Bookers. That's the name of our book club.
Is that the name of your book club?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I like it.
Mother Bookers?
Mother Bookers.
Okay. All right.
We are mothers who enjoy reading.
It's awesome.
Very specific group.
Yes.
But do y'all focus on, like, do y'all say, like, just...
we pick a book. Our leader, she picks out the book, and she just says, this is the book we're reading, and then we get together once a month, and we talk about the books. And so the only way I have a chance to read the books is if I listen to them on Audible. Yeah. And so I really don't like to miss out of that socialization. So that's why I need the books. Yeah. Because I have a month to listen to it. Which sounds like a really long time, but it's really not, because the way I listen to it is with my son being little, I try to talk to him as much as I can in the car. So since now he's developing language, so I try not to listen to my books when we're used to, it's quiet time in the car. So now I listen to the books like when I'm washing dishes or when I get to go to the grocery store by myself.
Nice.
So
those pockets of time. It's easier to find pockets of time to listen.
Yeah, those little pockets of time, I can
Yeah.
just kind of turn it on and put in my earbuds and listen to it while he's taking a nap or sleeping or something like that. And so that's how I've been able to stay current with our book club books.
That's awesome.
What'd y'all read this month, or what?
Malibu Rising. I haven't finished it yet.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
Have you read any of her other books?
No, this is my first one.
If you want an audible, if you need another audiobook, her Daisy Jones and the Six.
Yes, okay, I've heard of that
It
one.
was
That
a
one's on my list.
wonderful audiobook. Because, we talked about this a little with Katie. There are certain books that just lend themselves better to listen. And I read Malibu Rising and I listened to Daisy Jones and the Six. And I think that I did the right thing because Daisy Jones there's multiple narrators. And I don't know. It was really, really, really good. But Malibu Rising.
Yes.
Let me know when you finish.
Yes.
I gotta know what you think.
I have until the 29th.
Yes.
So-
Okay. All right. So you got some time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and to help us bridge into the conversation of the classroom, one of the things I've been blown away with, like some do lend themselves better for sure, but also audiobook companies have like started working a lot harder to make audiobooks so engaging. When I
Make
was
it
a
a
kid
production.
and
Yes.
I'd play, it was really boring and bland, and I just don't feel like these are not the audiobooks of our childhood at all.
No, these are not the cassette tapes that we used to put in and be like, ding,
Yep.
turn the page.
Yeah.
These are actually enjoyable. They really kind of add the character, and if you get a really good one, they'll change their voice.
Yes.
And so it really does hold your attention.
And I can't help but mention the Harry Potter Jim Dale,
well,
like,
yes.
I mean, those are incredible with the voices and everything. It's just hard to say no. And some, Kristen and I, we can't go, 15
ahead.
minutes without mentioning Trevor Noah. But that audiobook is just so good.
When the author reads their own words,
Yes.
it's a game changer. Well, okay, so we talked about personal reading audiobooks, but in the classroom, so you're assistant principal now, but like in the classroom, were there ever opportunities to use audiobooks with elementary kids?
Yes. A lot of them do have like, when I think of it for them, they more have the video for them, like the
Okay.
storyline online type thing. It's not really an audiobook, but they're listening to reading.
Yeah.
In these lower grades, they really need to hear people read, and people read well. And so some of the things like storyline online and Epic has more of an audiobook
it does.
selection where there's not all
very
the
own
movie.
selection.
It's called Epic for kids, and they can go on there and they have some videos, and they have just some like old school where it turns the page for them, like it highlights the words as it reads,
Yeah.
and it turns the page. So like in first grade, some of your advanced readers they would choose that, but some of your lower readers they're listening to it, but they're kind of watching. They're watching a video with it, but they're listening to people read. I really liked Storyline Online because they would have the actors, and in the beginning, Storyline Online didn't have these videos that were like production quality. They were just the author sitting there reading the book, and they would show the pictures, and the kids love that.
Yeah.
They love being read to, and they love listening to books.
And the more I learn about how people learn to read, which as a secondary person, I'm not trained in that, but I mean, our middle schoolers need that audio too. And we use Epic, but the collection for Epic is very much geared toward
Lower
elementary. And Sora does have that feature for some of the books. It just depends on them. But y'all, I have a student that really struggles to read, and I recently set him up with the audio version of Forged by Fire. And this child who has not finished a book all year long listened to all 3.5 hours of that book and was like, this is so good, and came in talking about so many details and stuff like that. And he definitely skipped the part where I told him I needed him to read with his eyes while he listened with his ears. But
Baby steps.
it's a game
There
changer
you
to
go.
have a student like that come in on fire about his book club book.
It really is. And with Epic, you set up a profile for each student. So if you started a book, they can log back in and it'll take them to that book. So they can kind of
nice.
save it.
Yeah.
So like my higher groups, they loved going in and finding those books, and they're a little bit more challenging and not so like they feel like they're being read to. Even though they are, I don't know, it just gives them a different element of I can do this. But those are ways I used in my classroom. Now, when I first started teaching, I had bags of CDs
remember the
and
bags.
like the little CD players with the headphones, and they would go get it because that's what, I mean, that was the technology I had. I worked at a very low income school, and we didn't have iPads for the kids. And so they would go get their little bags and they would listen to Chicka Chicka Boom Boom and they would turn the page. But in kindergarten, it helps them to have a tangible book so they can get used to tracking, you know, the words go left to right, I turn the page, that kind of thing. I still wish we had things like that, but
So you're at a school where every child has access to a device.
yes.
So things do change. So when they're listening to it, like you said, do they still have that opportunity to track, or what?
If we have it, there's
Okay.
just so many options
Yeah.
nowadays. I don't have every book. Like there's one on Storyline Online, and it's called "I Need My Monster," and it's like you can't find that book because it's on back order because it was on Storyline Online, and the kids love it, and they will check it out from the library
Aw.
because they've seen it. So it does it's a little bit of a bridge, but
Yeah.
it's not as like it used to be when you would go get the bag.
Yeah. No, I remember the bag.
Oh,
I have
yeah.
like the memory of the bag. The book is in there with all the things.
With all the things. And then like you used to have like the green sticker on the play and the red sticker on the stop. I mean, like I remember setting up my first classroom and having like the teacher before me who retired left that in there and like having it and they'd be like, the CD's skipping.
All right. Go listen to a different
Go
book.
listen to a different one. But I mean, that was all we had. So it is crazy just to think in 9 years how much that's changed and how many schools are one-to-one. And, you know, but I think that is important if we could find more books so they could listen to the video and practice those skills.
I think that's good for them.
That's awesome.
Well, and I think our big takeaways here are audiobooks are good for just the mental health of teachers. Like, get those stories in any way you can.
Yes.
And they're great for kids.
They really are. They need to listen to good readers. And it's just that fluency.
The fluency, just the oral language development
Yes.
is so helpful.
And even when you think they're not listening, they really are. You know, our big thing in the lower grade is teaching them not to read like a robot. We say,
What is
don't read like a robot. You want to read like a strand of spaghetti. So you're smooth like spaghetti. You're not choppy.
No.
No way. I have not heard that before.
Choppy like rice. Smooth like spaghetti.
So by listening to the audio.
So by listening to it, you can
Yeah.
hear. So you always have to make sure that it's a good reader.
Yeah.
And if they're reading very smoothly. So sometimes on Epic, you have to be careful because it will be like, Jack
Choppy.
ran over to his dog. You're like, don't read like that.
Yeah.
Think of your spaghetti.
Smooth like spaghetti. I love that.
Yeah.
That's probably going to be my takeaway from this episode.
I mean, that's a good takeaway.
Cooked spaghetti.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Cooked spaghetti.
Cook spaghetti. Got to be specific.
I don't want a
All right.
listener to be like, well, spaghetti's hard.
That would be the one comment
The
we get.
one comment you get. Sorry,
Yeah.
cooked spaghetti. Smooth like cooked spaghetti.
Yeah, there we go.
Perfect.
Well, and I don't know that you know the answer to our last question based on what you told us about your book club. What is your next book?
I don't know yet.
Okay, that's what
But I can't wait to find out.
Yeah,
Well, we're excited to hear about what you're going to read next. I hope that you enjoy the end of Malibu Rising.
Oh, I can't
It's-
wait.
It's really good.
and
Get
thanks
excited.
so much for being with us.
Thanks for having
And
me.
your busy schedule. Yeah.
This was awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for listening to this next episode. We'll be back in January, hopefully a little bit rested and ready for another semester with these wonderful children. See y'all later. All right, so like we mentioned throughout the episode, everything that we've talked about, all of the books that we mentioned today, all of our suggestions can all be found on our website and through the Wakelet that we share with you guys. Michelle and I would love to hear what you are reading now and what you're reading next. So leave us a comment and let us know what you're reading and let us know what you'd like to hear us talk about. See y'all later.